Hey up guys, it's Rory from Enlighten the Shadows here, and we are a men's mental health group that is out there to support and make a difference. Our heart in Enlighten the Shadows is to create media, mindfulness and mentoring in a way we can really impact men's lives so that we can see them transform and utterly be supported and poured out love upon their lives. So it's, even if men are just struggling with a bit of stress and anxiety, or across the spectrum, all the way to if they feel like they just want to end their life or be suicidal. So if that's you, if you feel like you have no reason to live anymore, or you just need a little bit of support, if you need some guidance about how to better your life, some of your mindsets and your strategies, we'll be honoured to have you on the journey with us. And you'll just say welcome to the brotherhood. We don't claim to have all the answers, but we are just here for you, extending that olive branch to see you flourish in your life. And we just say, have a go, give it a go. You never know what could happen. Have a great day. Cheers, guys. Hey up guys, welcome back to Enlighten the Shadows. Today's episode is 41. I've been off for a while, as you may or may not know. Lots of things popping off in my life, guys. I've been moving house. I bought a new house, so I'm currently in rental, waiting for that house to be built. Things are just left, right and centre, like 3 properties on the go, contracts being exchanged, and moving the houses after I just ran the Manchester Marathon in October. Yeah, so things have been hectic, guys, and that's just a reality. You know, it's an honour to lead Enlighten the Shadows. These YouTube episodes are here for you to be equipped, to be transformed, empowered in any what way. So yeah, we have guests from all over, and I'm really excited to be doing this again. I've had a makeshift moment tonight trying to set this up for you guys. I've been up to the second floor of the house trying to make it work. Not happening. So we're here in the living room. My TV's out the way, at the side of the floor right now. So I'm being real with you. This is where we're at. But today, guys, we have got a very, very insightful lady, a woman who understands quite a lot what it is to experience men's mental health being impacted. Her brother sadly passed away back in the early 80s, 1981. And we're just going to talk about her story. We're going to talk about her blessed brother, David. And we're just going to go in and, yeah, we're excited to talk about life and be real. So yeah, Helen Garlick, welcome to Enlighten the Shadows. It's great to have you on.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Rory. It's thanks so much for having me. I mean, I'm glad you're fitting me in with all your life's challenges going on at the moment. I mean, challenges actually sounds like it's making it mild of it, God. But anyway, no, really glad to be here, and I'm honoured to be invited. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And I don't know how we connect, but I saw that you are an ambassador for Zer0 the Alliance, the suicide prevention people. Yeah, they're brilliant.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm thrilled. I've just been recently appointed, I don't know, asked to be an ambassador for Zer0 Suicide Alliance. So I mean, what they do is so in line with what I want to do now. I want to campaign for suicide prevention, for zero suicide, which, you know, it sounds like an impossible dream, but you know, if we're not aiming for zero, then what figure do we accept is okay, you know? And we know that there's lots of mental health challenges at the moment, but I think on the good side, there's so much more talking that's going on. You know, it's, I mean, people like you, Rory, and others who are bringing things to the fore and being really courageous and talking about mental health and talking about what helps and reaching out and connecting, because it all starts with talking. It all starts with talking about it. And, you know, and I think I was brought up in a family where silence was, you know, was the thought to be the best thing. So I had things like, you know, kids should be seen and not heard and all that kind of stuff. But you know, that's so 20th century, if not 19th century.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, we need to talk.
Yeah, and this is, I'm so excited. Like your book, we'll talk about your book in a bit. Just really brilliant read. But yeah, you're saying about this, like I feel in the last 5-10 years, mental health awareness is obviously getting better, and I think it's not just people like you and I who have been impacted. Like my late stepsister took her own life last year.
Oh,
Yeah. So we have something sadly in common there. And she was an NHS doctor, and her main struggle was alopecia. So that's why I ran the marathon, was to raise money for Alopecia UK, because like yourself, as you were describing when you were in St. Louis at the time when you found out about your brother, he was with your friend. I think, was it Paul or Peter? I think Peter. I think was it.
yeah,
Yeah,
Peter. Yeah,
he's with your friend, and you kind of just feel utterly hopeless. And help you want to change it. You feel you want to turn back the hands of time and see,
yeah,
well, could I have had a conversation? Could I have done something? But I think when
yeah,
it affects you like it has you and I, you just want to do something. But I think the point is not just that, where we park it there. I feel like I'm passionate about equipping and inspiring everyone, because if we can equip everyone with those basic, conversation skills or ways to just reach into people properly, we will see exactly what you said, Zer0. I think Zer0 shouldn't be like some fantasy where, oh, well, you'll always get one. It's like, no, like every suicide, in my eyes, every suicide is 100% preventable.
mm.
So yeah,
It's the mad thing, isn't it? It's the biggest killer of men under 49, and
yeah,
yet it is a preventable thing. And on every level, it's wrong. I mean, it deprives society of a person, and their ability to pay tax. I mean,
yeah,
and work and do all the things. But it's the personal impact that feels so hard. I mean, and I think it's actually really quite hard to find the words for it. The
yeah,
nearest that it felt for me was sort of like being blasted by a volcano, and then you just end up with this sort of like empty void inside, a sort of this that you completely ill-equipped. I was 22 when my brother took his life. He was coming up 21, and I just didn't know. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. I mean, people were kind of like, luckily I was with some really good people in the States when my dad was a solicitor in Yorkshire, and he had to call me 3,000 miles away in St. Louis to tell me that my brother had died. And you just don't take it in at all. It's like, deny that it can't have happened. I'm dreaming this,
yeah,
and then it sort of slowly dawns on you, and then you quite right there, the whole whys. Why has it happened? What could I have done? Why am I here in America when I should have been in Yorkshire if my
yeah.
brother was going through some kind of crisis? And yeah, it completely knocks the stuffing out of you, and that seems such a mild thing to say. I don't know. It's so brutal. It's so brutal.
It is. And like, I was just thinking, when you must have had so much going on in your head, because like your book obviously is called A Place to Lie: Secrets Unlock the Promise. And I just think, I love the way you've put your book together. Like the first chapter. Oh my gosh, the first chapter. I love what you said. I want to park on this bit, because this is massive. Like, for the viewers, and it's something I personally related to, and something I'd never thought would be possible. But you said about apologizing in advance for how blunt and transparent the book was to be in the preface, and you said that it's like people have intentionally walked across the road to walk the other way from you, for kind of like ignoring that interaction. And I was like, oh my freaking gosh, like, I don't want to expose too much here, and respect and honor people within distance in my life, but there's absolutely been many horrible and hurtful occasions where people know what's happened to me and my wife, with the miscarriage of the baby, and then Liz passing 3 days later due to suicide. And they know what's happened, but it's too much for them.
Mm.
And it's like they protect themselves from kind of like going there and asking, and they do it intentionally. And you think, oh no, like, have I done something wrong, or am I too intense? And yeah, so I relate to that. And then literally you go straight into the sad scene that you said. I just love the way you wrote it so beautifully, but it was really poignant and powerful, and it gripped you straight away into the book, about how you kind of describe the house that your brother Dave was like kind of like looking after, and all of the scripters of the room, and like, and you just said it, what was there, like graphically. And I think, wow, like people, it can be a bit too much for them. What's your thoughts? But I think, I don't know, like people should kind of want to hear, because this is a reality, right? Like this is real.
It's yeah, I've tried to be as truthful as I could. I really tried to. I remember reading something by a guy called John Hayes, who said, when you're writing a memoir, then go to the place where it hurts and then start writing. So the thing that hurt the most ever in my life was my brother taking his life. So I thought I'll start there, and I'll imagine the scene that, my parents, who had actually been away in Cyprus, came to visit see my brother at Botham-Saw Hall, and they tried calling him the day before from London. He didn't answer the phone, so they thought the phone they'd reported a fault on the line. And then they, my dad went in and found him, but he thought he must be asleep or something at first. I think that whole denial thing really is powerful. So, and he didn't notice that. He thought there was a stick that was underneath his body, but actually it was a gun. It was a shotgun that David had got by forging a shotgun certificate. So he'd had a plan. He'd worked it all out. Although my father really couldn't accept all his life that my brother had taken his life, and so he always called it an accident, a terrible accident. That was the only way that he could. I think that it's probably the only way that he could live with himself for the rest of his life, and I couldn't pull that away from him. That was his crutch, really. So that's why I waited until after he and my mum actually died before writing the book. But I'm so thankful to you, Rory, and to every reader who reads it, because I know it's tough meat. It's in a way it's a really hard read, but in another way I wanted to make it beautiful. I wanted to make it like a gem, like a gift to people, so that if they are so brave as to read about this account of my brother, that they'll get something out of it. And I think that it is really important that we tell our stories about the truth of what happens. Because sometimes suicide can be glamorized. Actually, I'll tell you. So after the book was about to be published, then my publisher got a PR person involved, who then sent me the draft press release, and she'd put in the press release that my brother had killed himself with a revolver. And I thought, I might, not only has she not read the book, but a revolver sounds like a bit James Bond and a bit glamorous and a bit. Yeah,
it was a Russian shotgun. There's nothing.
And it was an entry-level Russian shotgun. It's about the cheapest shotgun cheapest gun that you could possibly buy. And I don't even know how he got the money to buy it, to be honest. He must have saved. It was £46 back in 1981, and he was pretty broke. So yeah, but it's horrible, it's messy, it's gory, it's painful, it's gut-wrenching, it's causes so much angst for everybody around. And when people, I think it's one of the saddest things, Rory, you must feel this the same way, when people say that they if they leave a note and they took their lives because they thought it would make it easier for the people who are left behind. Oh my God, if only they had any idea of the pain that it caused. And it's a lifelong thing. I mean, it happened 40 years ago, but it's still painful for me, and it hurts other people. So that's why I'm wanting to campaign for it's not the answer. It's a permanent solution to what's usually a temporary problem, suicide.
And there's so many ways we can attack it and help kind of just raise the awareness even more and equip people. Like the course that Zer0 Alliance do for people, they set in 3 tiers, and there's like an entry basic one that takes 10, 15 minutes, and then there's one that takes more like half an hour, and then the third one, which I've done, is like an hour long, and it's just magnificent. I recommend, I say, anyone watching this today, just get on it, guys, and click
Brilliant.
the link below. You know, pause this video if you have to, but or after, when we spoke to Helen even more in detail about her experience, her relationship with her brother, her own mental health journey, anything like that, how she got to write the book. But just check it out, guys. I'm telling you, because it will transform even your workplace. If you could tell your workplace how many people you're working in an office per se, like 15 people, imagine how the ripple effect can then equip others, so we can actually realistically achieve that more zero. It was 4,303 men sadly passed last ONS data 2019 pre-COVID. You know, we've lost thousands of men, and it shouldn't be happening, but that's not a blame game. But I think, wow, we can really do something about this together. So yeah, just check that course out, guys, and get on it, because I found it really useful. I'm not just saying that because Helen's here and she's the guest. Like, I did this at least 10 months ago, I believe. It was before I even know Helen existed. So yeah, there's no strings attached with any of that. But
yeah, absolutely. And it's all for free, isn't it, Rory? So it's Zer0 Suicide Alliance. We've just got to 1.8, just over 1.8 million people have done it. And you're quite right. You know, the more this can be spread out, this is not like kind of information that we want to hang on to. It's just it's really good life skills about identifying if somebody maybe thinking about taking their own life, things to watch out for, the questions you can ask, and then, you know, what to do. And it's like it's interactive as well, so that makes it a bit more fun. And it's brilliant. It is life-changing. We know many stories of people who've done the training and then helped somebody and they're still on the planet. So it's fantastic. I love it. If anybody
no-brainer, isn't it? We've got to get on it. So yeah, anyone watching, just go for it. It's decent. But in terms of the book, I've got some confessions to make. Like, I'm at the end of chapter 7, and I kind of like, I want to ask you questions, but I don't, because I feel like the way that you've ordered and structured the book is like, you kind of have two parallel pillars of like, right, this is how from the moment it happened onwards, you know, your brother taking his own life, and then from like childhood. So you're kind of crossing over, and it's so, I just love the way that is written in that way. But
I love it. You say that. Do you know what happened after I wrote the book? There were two male friends of mine, two men who I know, who are very good friends, and they each said in different ways, well, why should I read the book? You know, one of them never reads books, and the other one does read books, but it's only if it's about music, so or football. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to make it really pacey. So I'm going to make it a little bit like a kind of, you know, like short chapters. I really like short chapters because, you know, if you haven't got very long, it's just quite nice to be able to knock off a chapter when you're reading it. And I wanted to make it, you know, like, I wanted to give it some energy and some, come on, you know, sort of like pulling people through. So I tried to write it for men, as well as having somebody else in mind that I was writing it for. So I'm glad that you like the structure of it. And
I do, because it keeps you attentive. Like, a lot of blokes, naturally we lose focus and we're like, oh, okay, yeah, all right then. But you're bouncing around. You're like, oh yeah. I think that's why a lot of men like deep films like The Matrix and stuff, because you kind of like having to work it out a little bit, and you know, you're reading it and you're taking it in, but you're like, all right, that's that. Okay, right, I'm here. So yeah, I do love it. But about your brother, I loved your memories. So I've got a sister who's a year younger than me, and yeah, like, our childhood was just beautiful because she was only one school year younger than me. So I did relate to that relationship the two of you had. Yeah, I love the memories you're sharing. But like, is there anything relate to his childhood and yours where you can like kind of reflect and go, oh yeah, that's the first telltale signs? Because I know just people that are watching, like, you can have attachment issues, you can have trauma, there's all sorts of things that happen in people's lives, and you kind of just like fob it off, and then when you look back, you go, oh shoot, yeah, that's where it might have started. So yeah, is there anything in your brother's life that you thought, ooh.
Well, I mean, people have read into it all sorts of different things, and actually a couple of people have said to me, do you think your brother was like maybe on the spectrum or something? Because my brother didn't learn to talk until he was about 3, and I understood. We had this kind of like secret language between us. So he would say, I don't know, I go you, and I'd say, David wants a boiled egg and soldiers. So I was kind of always like his interpreter for my mum. So David and I had this really close bond between us, because I mean my parents were not easy people in lots of ways, and I think we just had our little group, him and me. But looking back, and it maybe he did find it hard to read emotion in other people. Maybe he did have, nowadays things get picked up much more.
Yeah.
Growing up in Yorkshire in the 1960s and 1970s, there were just so many things like you couldn't do. You could not mention the word depression. Depression did not exist, was my dad's view on life.
Okay.
I was never asked, honestly, I never remember being asked by either of my parents, how do you feel about whatever? That was not a question that either of us got asked. And I think that's, that's a funny thing about, as a parent. I mean, I've got a son now who's just 28, and he's a carpenter. He will train to be a marine engineer, but couldn't get a job. So he always loved working with wood. So he's trying to be a carpenter. And then next week he's off to Denmark to be part of a volunteer group to restore a 1930s wooden sail cargo boat, because he absolutely loves boats.
Class.
So he's going a big international community, and they kind of all live together and cook together, and people take it in turns to cook and stuff. So he's going to do that. No, where was I thinking about that? But yeah, so my son was actually very different from his dad, who was also a lawyer, and I was a lawyer. In a way, my son is a bit more like my brother, and because my brother was he's more like a kind of explorer and a dreamer, and he used to have this whole imaginary thing when he was in his sort of like 12 and upwards, that he was in an episode of Ivanhoe. So he had a whole loads of armor and different things. So he would collect birds' eggs, and he'd make model aeroplanes. I mean, his room, was like birds' nests and aeroplanes hanging down there, and you kind of have to get in there to see him. But he's very, very different from my dad. And there's a book that's on my to-be read list called Far from the Tree. I don't know if you've come across it, Rory, but it's a flipping doorstep of a book. It's a bit daunting to try and read.
That's why I haven't read it.
Exactly. But it's a book about children who are very different from their parents, and then how that works. So autistic children, a whole range of different things. But I think in essence my brother was very different from my dad, and my dad wanted a son who was a bit like him. He wanted a sort of clever boy who was going to become a solicitor and then take over the firm of solicitors that he had up in Yorkshire. So but my brother was different. So I mean, in terms of attachment, I think there were probably issues going on there, because I don't think my mum was very well attached to her mum. And in turn, it's always, because you have to kind of like hop up a generation, don't you, to understand anybody.
Yeah, you do. And I got that vibe from your mum in the book, like how it was just, everything was just proper old school. And I don't mean in a derogative way, like it was just the way it was. Like your mum was prim, proper, quiet, and then like your dad was like, said it how it is, and that's how it was. And like even the moment when he told like your mum desperately wanted to come and see what was going on with your brother, and like he like had to like firmly tell her to stay in the car to protect her. But little things like that, like, and then when you moved house, there was no consultation. It was like, right, we're moving. And then I remember you and your brother like going up to the same room and being really like just like wounded by it, but it was just like, no, that's it, it's how it is. So yeah, I feel like they were just very I don't like stereotyping, but it was very like just typical old school, wasn't it? Like,
oh yeah, no, I mean it's the patriarchy in full flood, really. You know, my dad making decisions and then the rest of us having to deal with it. I mean, you know, I think one of the things I feel after having written the book though is like I don't feel any blame for my parents, you know, and
yeah,
or anybody else really. I think, you know, where do you go with blame? It doesn't help anybody. In fact, I have a sort of almost like a bigger heart towards my dad and my mum than I did before I wrote the book, and also very much to my brother. I think we're all products of our upbringing, aren't we? And my dad was brought up by, you know, kind of woman who, she's a bit like, I don't know, Hyacinth Bouquet. You probably don't, you're too young to remember that, but there's like this TV character who always kind of like wants to make everything very nice, and she doesn't call cushions cushions, she calls them cushions. And my nana, my dad's dad, was really like that. She was very into, you know, how everything appeared. And so I think there were probably lots of problems in terms of attachment for each of my parents, and in turn my mum was very sort of cool ice beauty, you know, a sort of Nordic looking blonde hair, cheekbones, god those cheekbones, but she wasn't very warm, so I don't really remember those very early years. But I think I basically thought, I've just got to look after myself, I've got to be the, you know, the grown up here. So I sort of stepped in. But yeah, you turn things over in your mind, don't you? You must have done that same thing with your stepsister about where were the signs.
Yeah, because I wasn't around my stepsister in the early years. Like she only come into my life like around 2016. So I didn't have like much of a bond or relationship with her as such. Like, you know, nothing of the kind. Like, not that it's a comparison game, but nothing like yourself and your brother. And I feel like as well, reading, I might be reading between the lines too much, but like you were almost like a big sister, and then like subtly like this nurturing mother as well, which I kind of felt was really sweet. And that's just natural. There's nothing wrong with that. But I kind of got that vibe from you, that you were really quite nurturing older sister. That I'd probably argue that he cherished more than anything, if I'm honest.
Oh, darling. I mean, I think when we were younger, we were really, really close. But as we got into our teenage years, you know, we got quite far apart, actually, further apart anyway. And I mean, I was brought up in Sheffield in the 1970s, and early 70s, and it was a really cool place to be brought up. Like my mates were the Human League and Heaven 17, and we had this like drama group in Sheffield called Meat Whistle, where we all used to hang out, and it was, you know, like guys dressed as women and women dressed as guys, all kind of like, you know, years ahead of its time in a way,
right.
And lots of drama stuff. So I was really caught up in all of that, whereas my brother was more into like fishing and being with his friends, and so there was a kind of like quite a parting of the ways. Actually, in our teen, we were really close when we were little, and then we got further apart, and then he just kind of got into real guy stuff and just hated being around me. You know, like I was a woman, and well, girl come woman, and he didn't really like being around girls. So, you know, then other friends have said, do you think he was gay? And the only relationships I know he had were with women, but girls. But, you know, maybe he was, maybe that was something that he was struggling with.
Yeah, I mean, in those days, like it's even in the 80s, and that it was still a lot of shame for people to I guess come out, as they call it. And they covered it up by actually having heterosexual relationships, which kind of like were a plaster per se with what they were really feeling, with their temptations or attractions. So and on that note, I feel like, I mean, it's not where I'm called or God has called me to be a light necessarily, but I know someone who is personally, really much so. But the LGBTQ plus community is like got massively, horrifically high suicide and self-harm rates, and I'd probably argue, not that I'm a wizard with it, but I'd argue that that very thing that I've just described is part of the issue of why they self-loathe, and the anxieties there and the shame, and so it's
I mean it's I mean I had a was talking to a guy, DJ or Manita, so he's an Asian drag queen, and he has sort of like formed this community in London, and they do these great drag queen tours around London called Dragged Around London. And but he's kind of trying to create a family and a community, because some of the people that he's working alongside have literally been thrown out by their parents, even now, even in 2021, when they find out that they're gay. So which is just horrendous. So there's a massive shame and stigma, I think, around that even now, if you've got parents who've got very rigid views about what their kids should be like. And so we should all just accept each other for what we are. I mean, as you say, you're not called by God to go that way. I mean, but you're given a kind of compass when you're born. It's not visible as to which way you're drawn, and it's not like you can kind of go, no, I'm definitely not going north, I'm going southeast. It's just like, no, I'm sorry, that's the way your desires flow. So so if that was true for David, but that's one of the many questions I've still got, Rory. Never really got to know him out so much as an adult, and all those times when I got married, or when I had a child, and I've got 3 children, very, very lucky, and but their uncle David never held them, never saw them grow up. And in fact, they don't even think of him as their uncle, they just think of him as mum's brother.
That's a whole nother level in itself, isn't it? The dynamic of like, there's no memories created, is there? So therefore in their mind it's like, well, there's nothing there, and it's your brother, but it's not my uncle, because I guess we create memories, don't we, in life? And like I've got lots of nieces and 2 nephews, and particularly 2 nieces of mine that live in the village, my wife's twin sisters. Oh man, they're just amazing, because I get to see them all the time, whereas some of the others live Leeds and in New Zealand. So it's like I create those memories with the close ones, and therefore I have that bond, don't I? So I'm like, oh, I'm Uncle Roy, and they're my little nieces that I'll just lay out on a road for if I have to, it's really interesting, isn't it, how we form relationships in our lives. And it's powerful, and I think that goes to the antithesis of where we're at today, having this conversation, why we're drawn to each other, is that actually we need more relationships, we need more connectivity. Like, although we've got social media, it's like we're still not connected, are we? Loneliness is still rampant, and
loneliness is rampant, absolutely, and isolation is actually the biggest killer. If you kind of like dive down underneath suicide, but other things like heart attacks or alcoholism, or other addictions that people have to self-medicate, at the heart of it is often, very, very often, isolation. If you live on your own, you won't necessarily live very long, which is like a really, really sad thing. And we've had the biggest test of all, haven't we, with lockdown. So this thing that we're hardwired for, which is to connect with other humans and to love and learn and be with other people, all that kind of stuff has been taken away from us. And so it's been such a hard time, such a difficult time for lots of people.
It's true. And I actually, my pastor preached Sunday about this, that she found out that people who live alone, who eat healthier than those who have a few deep and meaningful relationships, don't live on average as long as those who are in a few deep meaningful relationships but don't eat as healthy at all.
Interesting.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, but that's the food that we need, isn't it? It's like human connection, relationships, our community is our inner food. It's what feeds us. It's what helps us thrive. And if we don't have that, so yeah, if there's any one message, it's constantly about the importance of real relationships, not just flicking through on your phone and see how many likes you've got on Instagram, although I still do that too. But yeah.
Are we all guilty of that one, eh?
I know. God. Oh dear. But yeah, it isn't about how many Instagram followers you've got, and I haven't got that many, but it is about hugs. God, I missed hugs during lockdown. I really missed holding people that I love. I really love a good hug.
Yeah. I mean, I've got someone that I know through work has had a bereavement, and a very close direct family member, and this person really not in a good place. Like first few days, a little buzzing, they were like, really positive and doing well. But as grief can be a funny thing, and then this person was just you could see visually really struggling, teared up and had to go. But I actually followed him out of the office and just gave him a massive man hug and poured the love on him. And it's just like that. It's so subtle, I feel, in life, like these little moments where if we miss them, like it's not anyone's fault, as we said earlier, but actually I feel like if we can just be on our toes a little bit, if we can just read rooms, or we can, we might be struggling. I've had a crap week, but there's that outward looking and going, oh shoot, that's not normal. And sometimes I guess we don't know what to do or say sometimes, but I just think even a hug is like, it can just go 1,000 miles, can't it?
Yeah, hugs are amazing, very, very healing. And I think just to say to somebody, you matter to me, you matter, I matter to you, you matter to me. It's important. And I'm hanging on in there with you, and I know you're going through a really tough time, but you matter. I think lots of us lots of us have this really crap, am I allowed to say crap on here? Probably. I don't know.
You're allowed to be yourself. That's the rule.
All right. Well, there's always crap in life, then, isn't there? But we have our inner voices can be so negative, can't they? It's like, you don't matter. Nobody cares about what you think, and just go away and whatever. I mean, it's just, if we can change our inner voices, that's really important. And that there are ways of doing that, actually, just by repeating mantras about how how important, how we value ourselves, because it always comes back to us, doesn't it? We need to start with self-love and self-acceptance before we do anything else, really.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. Like, your declaration over yourself is so powerful. Like, words, they're so, I think it's actually in the Bible, of all things, it says, as a man thinketh, so he is. And out of the mouth overflows the heart. And if you telling yourself in your head and your heart, it becomes a belief system. If you start saying it, it becomes your reality. And yeah, I just think I wonder like our siblings, like on a deep, it's really hard to unpack it, isn't it? Because we don't really know. But I just always want to think, like with Alicia or with David, like what was going through their mind, like how lonely did they feel? Even like the loneliness, this is a whole nother level. Even the loneliness of in their own mind, the loneliness in their own reality or their heart, where they feel that they couldn't even go outward about it. Like that I guess that might have been quite a lonely place for them. Like, did your brother did he ever tell you anything of the kind? Or
nothing really. absolutely
Wow.
nothing. I mean, he was more withdrawn. You know, I mean, just wish I wish I had the sort of like language and questions and things like that that I've learned over the years, back when I was 22, or 21. But no, he never said anything to me that he was thinking about ending his life, or in that he was in a bad place. I mean, he was he went to university and was studying marine biology, and he failed 2 lots of exams. So he failed 1 year and he got chucked out. So he tried another university and he failed that year, and he got chucked out of there because he
Right.
failed exams. And so that's why he was caretaking in a very remote village up in Nottinghamshire. That was just to give him a bit of cash. He hadn't really got anywhere to go to. And that was coming to an end when he took his life. So I think he, also the whole idea of home. I mean, this place was remote. I've got a YouTube channel called Hello, It's Better to Talk, and David's
Cool.
story and my story are on there. And there's a picture of Botham-Saw Hall, and it was, as there is in the book, but it's quite a spooky looking place.
Yeah.
And it was cold as Christmas, people used to say about it, so it would have been cold and everything. So it wasn't really a home that you and I might think of as like being a nice cozy place, but
Yeah.
it was where he was. And then that was coming to an end. He was going to have to leave there and then go back and be with my parents. And maybe he thought that his freedom was being curtailed. I don't know. But no, I mean, I feel really bad about that. That I was so caught up really in living this life in Sheffield, and then getting away and going to uni in Bristol, and then going to America. After I took a gap for like 3 months, worked, saved up some money, and I just wanted to get away. I wanted, my big ambition when I was young was really to get away from home. I mean, I kept on thinking that I was in the wrong family.
Right.
When I was little, I was sure that I'd been given to the wrong family. I used to look through my parents had this like old red hat box where they kept all their documents, and I thought I was adopted.
All right.
I kept searching through there, sure that one day I would find the adoption papers. But I mean, it's daft, because actually, if you see me and then you see a picture of my parents, I'm the dead spit of.
There you are then.
I am. Yeah.
Oh, nice one. But yeah, I was just thinking as well, like when you're writing the book, with your brother, what was the biggest like revelation you did have about what happened to him in the end? Like what was it that you was like, wow, okay, where I guess in a way had it like changed, it almost changed your life?
It changed my life, yes, in a way that, so I had this kind of like crater inside me, and an emptiness, and I did some daft things, some of which are mentioned in the book.
The Kashmir man.
Kashmir man.
Yeah.
we had a big discussion with my editor as to whether we should make Kashmir Man with a capital C and a capital M to be like the worst superhero ever.
Oh, you gotta laugh. It's all good. We live.
I mean, we do daft things. We drink too much. We do different, to have sex with inappropriate people. But what was the biggest revelation in writing the book? I think I found out different things. Because I found the QC. So when my brother had died, then there was a first inquest, and the coroner at that first inquest said that my brother had taken his life, said that it was suicide. And then my dad in particular, both my parents really couldn't accept that, and so then they did this form of appeal against that original verdict, and that was successful. And then they got a second inquest, and there was a young barrister called Brian Lett who helped them, and in fact he did his work for free for them because he felt that there had also been a miscarriage of justice. So he helped them, and he did set aside that appeal. But he told me, so he's now a very eminent QC in his 70s. Very interesting man, actually. Sort of, he lives he's part Italian and part English, but he spends a lot of his time out in Italy, finding out about the war heroes that there were there, or the resistance heroes in Italy, and acknowledging them. So he's got a whole charity to do with that. So yeah, Brian Letts, and he's written quite a few books himself. So he's a good guy. So he told me about the fact that my dad had a bad relationship with the first coroner, and that the first coroner knew my dad and knew that my dad had a bad relationship with his son. So my dad had felt that actually that first inquest was all, you know, was decided before he even walked into the room.
Yeah.
So that was, I didn't know about that relationship. And in fact, when I was researching the book, my mum had another relationship with a man before she met my dad, and this man had the same first name as the coroner. And there was one point I thought, oh my God, my mum had a relationship with the coroner. But in fact, it wasn't that. It was they just shared the same name. So my aunt put me straight on that. But yeah, no, there were many things. And another thing that happened was that one of my brother's friends at school got in touch with me, and he told me that when he and David were about 12, that David said that he didn't want to live beyond 20. And Christopher said he'd never told anybody that before. And he said, I didn't know what to do with it when I was 12. I just said, David's just stupid, you know, of course. But but David hated the thought of getting old. And he also was going bald. So he was 20, but he'd lost most of his hair. He was like my mum's dad, who went completely bald when he was 21. So David was losing his hair, and that really meant a lot to him.
Yeah.
So Christopher was, I mean, I was glad Christopher had told me, but you know, then you wonder, what if he told somebody else at the time? It's all this stuff about, you know, being told big stuff and then feeling like you can't tell anybody about it, and keeping it secret, and then these things kind of like worm away, you know. I mean, maybe if my brother had talked to somebody about the reality of getting older, maybe, you know, maybe it might have felt a bit better for him. I don't know. But what's happened has happened. I think what it did also do for me in my 20s was it made me realize that I was not immortal, and that my life was also important.
Wow.
And I think that's quite a good thing to know, you know, that, like, I didn't know exactly what my life's purpose was, but I knew that I was alive, and I knew that, you know, it was important that I lived, and that I had a life.
Yeah. Well, it's so true. Like, I think you nailed the head on everything that we are as human beings. Like, we live and we die, and I think our society today, like what we live in, our generation, it's current, there's so many distractions, like everywhere, from that reality. I really believe that. Like, oh, of course, you know, you Netflix and your games and stuff like that, there's a lot of killing and death, but actually, and you know, the last year and a half, we were, you know, all scared about what the reality might have been. Thankfully, it's not as bad as we first thought, but like death has been quite on the headlines everywhere. But actually, I'll still argue that, as you said, the reality that I am alive and I'm not immortal. Like I am a mere mortal, and I will die one day. It sounds really heavy stuff here, but I think it's really important for our viewers to kind of sit alongside us right now and go, yeah, shoot, it is quite deep, and it can probably trigger a lot of things for you, or create even potential anxiety. Like I was 5 years old when I first thought of death, and have this chilled kind of reality that it would be like this dark sleep that I can't wake up from. It's like this abyss, and I was like, oh my gosh. And didn't tell anyone about it, but was terrified because I had no answers. And thankfully, as the viewers may know, from this episode, that I have a faith in God, so I'm not scared of death anymore. But yeah, like if we ignore that reality, like we can just get so distracted, and we're robbed as well. I feel, like life is there to live to the full, and
it is. Yeah, the things that get pumped onto us really are things that will distract us more. Like, I mean, booze is a big thing. That was one thing that happened when I was writing the book. And if anybody knew me 5 years ago, they would not believe this, but I gave up drinking alcohol.
Wow.
Pretty much. I mean, I've had, gave up 18th of January 2020, and I've had maybe 3 or 4 drinks since then.
Wow.
Usually when I thought I should. But then that was important to me, actually, just from reading, when I realized that so much of the trauma in my family has been linked with booze. David was 3 times over the drink drive limit when he took his life, and that's a very common feature factor in suicide, that very often there's been, you've been drinking or sometimes taking drugs, and there's that kind of like promise of, the alcohol will make you feel better for a bit, but then it doesn't. It's a depressant, and in my family it's been pretty bad. I think my dad was really a functioning alcoholic. My mum drank a lot until 2007 when she gave up completely. But my granny, who I adored, my mum's mum, she would open a bottle of rosé every morning at about 10:30 and then drink it. And so you knew that between 10:30 and about 3:30, 4 o'clock, it just wasn't worthwhile talking to her, because she'd just, she'd be drunk basically. So I thought, okay, this is probably hardwired in my DNA, and maybe this is not a good thing to have. But I think, but when you go into that, I mean, when our local shop stayed open, it's great people. Bala and Sue run our local shop, but there was so much booze in there. Like you could hardly get into the shop from the amount of booze they had to bring in for the demand. So a lot of people drank their way through lockdown, didn't they?
Yes, very true.
Then that has problems in itself. I mean, I'm not kind of saying you've got to give up, but for me, it was important that I did, actually, and that I didn't kind of take refuge in booze, but that I was present, and I'm trying to be present for my kids now.
That's massive. That is, being present.
Yeah,
love that. Yeah, and life can happen, and suffering happens, and as you alluded to, we kind of think that alcohol will take it away, and it's just that deception behind it. We had Jack Knowles come on, I think it was episode 26. He talked about quitting drinking. That's the name of the actual episode. I'll put it on the screen for people to watch after. But yeah, he was struggling with reality with his dad, and potentially losing his dad to a freak accident. And yeah, he took her through the journey, particularly in the earlier part of the lockdown. And yeah, very subtle, and didn't think it was an issue. And then next thing you know, it was very regular. So yeah, it can happen to us. So yeah, if people are struggling watching, they can watch that after, as I say. But yeah, oh man, there's so much more we could talk about, honestly, about your book. But yeah, I just feel like I don't want to spoil it for others and for me in the later chapters. But yeah, I'm so excited to hear more from your book and maybe talk to you in the future, because yeah, I you've got a good spirit and a good soul behind you, I can tell.
Oh yeah. Well, you too, darling. I mean, yeah. I'd love to. I mean, in 2023 I'm going to be walking from Land's End to John O'Groats with my dogs and my husband. I don't know why I put them in that order. So
we won't tell him
this,
unless he watches it. Exactly.
Yeah. And we're having a practice. We're sort of starting to practice by walking around London. So there's something called the London Capital Ring. So we're walking sections of that every Sunday.
Not the M25, is it?
Yeah, you might as well say bye bye now, eh?
Oh, shoot.
Yeah. No, it's really beautiful parts of London. I
Yeah.
couldn't believe it. We came across this wonderful castle in the middle of a forest called Seven Droog Castle, which has got a coffee shop in it, and
Yeah.
it's just out of nowhere. So anyway, yes. Why am I talking about that? Because I suppose I'm trying to encourage you to have me on my show later. Talking about to have me back to talk about the Land's End John O'Groats Walk if I survive it.
We'll have to sort out some of the Enlighten boys joining you for a leg or so.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. We'll come and what we could do is we could GoPro it, and we could just chat and walk on one of the legs, do an episode that way. That would be pretty creative.
That'd be so cool.
We should do. We'll do that.
Okay.
But before we go, Helen, just for our viewers, just want to give you the Enlighten the Shadows question, which is for anyone who can relate to what we've talked about a lot today, with your brother and my late stepsister as well. They just feel like kind of like David must have felt, and they feel that hopelessness and just they're done and they want to end it. What small piece of advice could you give them?
Well, I would say that the thing is, emotions change, feelings change. We're all driven by our feelings, and sometimes we do get into a really dark place, but that will change. It's like apart from the fact that we know we're going to die one day, the only thing you can absolutely rely on is the fact that everything changes. So hang on in there, find someone who you can talk to the Samaritans if you can't talk to anybody else, but reach out to me, reach out to Rory, reach out to others who are here and know how important you are, and start on thinking, I am loved, I love myself.
Come on.
And it might feel like you don't even know that that's true at the moment, but it will be true. You keep on giving yourself that love, that light, that energy.
Love that.
It will be true one day.
That's so good. And we talked about that, Helen, with Tony White. She works a lot in the police, supporting men with their mental health. I'll put that on the screen for the people as well. I think it might have been episode 31, but I'm not too sure.
You're amazing. You can remember all these numbers.
No, honestly, I am really blessed to be doing this, and the caliber of human beings. And I'm not just talking about people who have written books like yourself, or people who have been like MEPs or whatever we've had on the show. I'm honestly the caliber in terms of their integrity, their character, their experiences, and it's just like I don't forget stuff that they say, and therefore I'm like, oh yeah, I remember the episodes. But Tony White said this, like, men can come in and out of like their rationale quite quickly. Like we can be quite reactive, and all of a sudden like this dread and like, oh, I don't want to be anymore. And because of our risk-taking behaviors, like suicide can just happen quite quickly. But she did talk about that. It's called Men and Emotions. So yeah,
that's really interesting.
She's very, very good, amazing human being, and her insights are, I think, ahead of our time, genuinely. She talked about there's this expectation as well that men should have to reach out, but actually she said no, it's for us all together to reach into that person. Even that language is like, so I'm like, wow, Tony's like yourself, she's the bomb. I love Tony, she's brilliant. So but
I must listen to that episode.
Check it out for sure. But I say we'll be more in touch, Helen. I really enjoyed this. But guys, if you've not subscribed to our channel, get on it, and we want to reach as many men as possible. Like we got Zer0 Alliance, we've got amazing people who've had on our episodes doing great things. We've had Samaritans come on the screen. That's 116123. The shout. There's so many avenues, guys, that you can check out. But we're all here for you. If you're watching this and you're struggling, we've put Helen's Twitter handle on there throughout this episode. DM her, DM us. Just come on the screen right now as well as the subscribe to our channel. We have our men's private Facebook group. We've got about 560 plus men across the UK. Yeah,
fantastic.
Internationally. Yeah, so it's all safeguarded, guys, and there is some absolutely breathtaking things going on in that group, like some really tough things that men are struggling with, and they open up on that group because it is a place for that. And we just see, like, not the admins, men who are just on that group for the same reason, just pouring the love out and the encouragement. So yeah, just join that group if you can. And
What's that group called again, Rory?
Yeah, so it's facebook.com, and if you click on the little 3 people icon on groups, it's then Enlighten the Shadows. It is for men, but yeah, if you could signpost any men there, that'd be wonderful, Helen. But yeah, it's for any bloke that's struggling.
Right.
It's just another avenue. But yeah, but thank you guys. This has been episode 41 with Helen Garlick. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you soon. The Enlighten boys are due a massive catch up. We've got a massive update coming about our website. Our website is ready, but we're going to announce that properly soon. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Thank you.